Welcome to the Ozone.
Hello and welcome to the Ozone. I'm your host, Jeff Hazard, Assistant Director of Athletics and Sports Information Director here at SUNY Oneonta. And today I have the pleasure of welcoming to the show Hall of Fame baseball player Rick Yandoli. Welcome to the show, Rick. Well, I'm doing okay. How about you?
Doing well. Thanks for asking. How's the weather up in Oneonta today?
It's a little misty. It would be baseball weather, because
Great day for a doubleheader.
So I'd like to start our conversation about how you determined that Oneonta was going to be the place for you coming out of high school, to come here and call it home. So
Sure. Excuse me, Jeff. So in 1973, I was 17 years old. I was raised in Queens in Astoria, Jackson Heights. So I was graduating high school. I went to Bryant High School in Astoria, and I played baseball there as well as football. And I had some options on the baseball and football side, but I really wasn't totally comfortable with it yet. I was trying to look under every rock, leave no stone unturned before I was able to, just feel good about where I would land. So kind of at the last minute, maybe April of 73, towards my senior year in high school, Glenn Siegel, who was a really good friend of mine in high school, who I played baseball with. He's a great left-handed pitcher. I also played baseball with him in Little League as well, so I knew him a long time. I knew he had gone up to Oneonta to play baseball. I knew it was a great baseball program. And he had reached out to me, and his dad had actually reached out to me. His dad used to come to all the games when we played from Little League going forward to high school. And he had told me, Glenn and his dad had told me that, Oneonta continues to be a great program. Though it's Division III, they play quite a few games in the fall and the spring. Also play quite a few Division I teams, a great coach. And one of the most important pieces was that the catcher for Oneonta State at the time, Louis Condon, who was an outstanding catcher and Hall of Fame inductee, was going into his senior year in September 73. So Coach Axtell was hoping to secure a catcher, who could carry the load. So I weighed it, I assessed it, and I thought it would be the way to go. So I signed on without even going up to school. And Coach had written me a beautiful letter in June, happy about my decision. And then I received the Coach's, the legendary letter that you would receive in August or maybe late July to indicate that, we're getting ourselves ready for the fall season. And what I would like all of you gentlemen and expect all you gentlemen to be doing now is you're getting yourself ready on the physically fit side. And here's a way the logistics of life will line up in August when you arrive. So I was excited. I was excited when I got his welcome letter, and I was excited when I received that, entrance letter, so to speak. I felt like I arrived, So that was really, my decision logic and the events that led to my decision.
Now, certainly, like you said, you've already mentioned, Glenn Siegel, outstanding pitcher for us during that stretch of time. I mean, you played on some SUNY championship teams and some ECAC championship teams, and we really had it going during that mid-'70s time with some of those players. Can you just talk about that experience on those teams and being with those guys and the lifelong friendships that you built?
Sure, Jeff. Sure. You know what? I often say they were the 4 greatest years of my life. I have played sports since I was, a young child, football, baseball, especially on many teams. And as I elevated my level, I was able to build bonds in relationships and learn a lot along the way on and off the fields. But none of that in the past rivaled what I was about to experience in Oneonta State. And it was just, it was a glorious time. I think you and I have discussed this in the past. It was, the O State brand was and still is a great brand. On the sports side, we were second to none. We had it going on, I think, in all categories with basketball and cross country and soccer especially, and, and wrestling. But on the baseball side, we were gods. We really had a great team. Coach had assembled a great, team at the point of my arrival, but he had already built a legacy through his years there before I had arrived. I think maybe he came on the scene in 1965. I stand corrected, but maybe 65.
Yeah.
So I come in 73. He was there 8 years, and he was already, a rock star up there. Built a great legacy, a great program, and I just was so happy to be able to be part of it. And a lot of his beliefs and philosophies and thoughts of the approach to the game were things I had always believed in. So I was, kind of fortunate to kind of just align myself with someone who shared my beliefs. But to your point about the players, so I was a catcher. My freshman year, when Louis Condon was still catching, I was fortunate enough to play right field, and I DH'd. So I had a lot of playing time, which was great. And we won the ECAC championship that year, which was really unbelievable. And, my freshman year, we had some great seniors like Louis Condon. We had Mickey Coronaccio in center field, who was really a dynamite guy and ball player. We had Johnny McBride in left field, who was a great friend of mine and a mentor. Called him Johnny Mac. He was fearless. He was great. So they were all big cogs in the machine, And then, the younger players on the team that I arrived, when I arrived in 73, my freshman year, they were all softs and juniors who I went on to share many years with. And those guys were just tremendous. The pitching staff, as you mentioned, Glenn Siegel, my friend, was a great, really, really good left-handed pitcher. And he had great stuff, a great fastball, great curveball. He might have had the best move to first base in the history of moves. He was known for it. And I include all major leaguers. He was it was lights out. He made my life easy with men on base. Shame on me if anyone ever stole, because no one ever got a jump. He was great. Roger Weaver, of course, was a great, great right-handed pitcher. He was a sophomore when I was a freshman, as Glenn was. And Roger had a great career. He had a great fastball, a great slider. His slider broke from here to here. It was unfathomable. He was big and he was strong. He was also a tremendous hitter, great right fielder. And as we all know, he went on to become signed by the Detroit Tigers in 1976. He had a pretty good professional career for some years. He was a great ball player, a great guy. Mike Planish, another great pitcher, right-handed pitcher. He had some really good years up there, and then he hurt his arm. So you had Glenn Siegel, you had Roger Weaver, you had Mike Planish. You had Tommy Bean, who was a dear friend of mine, still is. He was a freshman, as I was. He arrived on the scene when I did. Big, strong right-hander. A guy like Tommy would shine on any other team as, the first starter in the rotation. He shined on our team, but unfortunately, he had other guys there as well with him. They all had to share the glory because they were all great.
Yeah.
And then, we had Frank Surdy at second base, was a hell of a second baseman. Kevin Johnson, my main man at first base. He could kick the hell out of the world. Kevin, was a great hitter, great fielder. He was all conference.
Yeah.
I think he went on to stay up in the Oneonta area in the world of academia, and he became a supervisor of sorts, among the schools up there. Kevin's a great guy. He's a great leader. Mark Burlingame at shortstop.
Yeah.
He was a really good shortstop. Tommy McGraw at third base. He can wake up in the middle of the night and hit a line drive base. He was a great hitter. He was a cool man. We had, the outfield, Bobby Degnan, who was, he came on later on. He came in on my junior year. He's a great friend of mine to this day. He was a great right fielder. Denny Colin, center field, backup catcher as well. Hell of a center fielder. Bart Zednitsky from Queens, really good center fielder as well. Tommy LaGruda, I failed to mention, was a sophomore when I came up as a freshman, really good left fielder. Tommy had passed away some years ago. He was a really good guy and a good ball player. And, those guys really helped, sustain excellence over time. The great thing about it is we had continuity. All those gentlemen that I mentioned, most of them sophomores when I was a freshman, stayed with the team right through.
Yeah.
And, we had a great program. The coach was really adept at continually recruiting excellent people who he knew not only had skill set in the game, but they would fit the locker room and they would fit, the O State way of life, which was, a unique approach to the game on and off the field. So, just a bunch of great guys. Later on in years, we had guys like Frankie Galco, was a really good pitcher. We had Joey Hughes, who was a local product from Oneonta High School, came on to play with us. He was really good. Donnie Flint was really good. Just a lot of really good ball players. We were fortunate during my 4 years there, during my early years, my middle years, and my senior year, we just were able to sustain excellence because of, Coach did a fabulous job in everything that he did.
Right.
And it just, it helped set us up for success. And we were all really good ball players,
Right.
and we had the rule of the world from 73 to 77. They were glorious years.
Yeah.
We won 2 ECACs,
Yeah.
2 SUNYACs,
Yep.
maybe lost a SUNYAC by a game one year. It was silly. And, we were dominant, and we played a difficult schedule. We played, of course, a lot of Division III SUNYAC teams.
Yeah.
We had a southern trip, played Division I teams down in Virginia.
Yeah.
We played Virginia Tech, University of Virginia, Hampton-Sydney, VMI, and we kicked the hell out of everybody. It was great. We loved beating Division I teams. A lot of Division I teams wouldn't want to play us,
Yeah.
because they had everything to lose and nothing to win.
That's right.
And then we come up north, and we'd be ready to go.
Yeah.
And we had, Coach really was able to coordinate and assemble a great schedule of, opposing teams over time.
Right.
We ended up with a lot of great rivalries in and out of the conference. Ithaca College,
Yep. Ithaca.
Utica College, Cortland State, of course, was one of our rivalries.
Yeah.
We hated each other for 4 straight years. It was great. And to this day, I'm sure if any of those gentlemen ever saw me on the street, they wouldn't be happy to see me.
Yeah.
So, but it was, it was a great time.
Yeah.
We had just, and these guys were not only great ball players, but we became great friends. To your point, to this day, I'm close with, so many of them. We stay in contact, we stay in touch, and spent a lot of time together, on and off the field during those years. It was a great time. The 70s were a great time.
Yeah.
And O State was, I just always felt just a great brand then and now. And, Coach Hack still had so much to do with that. And so did the other coaches, Coach Flewelling with basketball and Coach Stan with soccer, Coach Sosa, on the wrestling side. They just were, they were all young, energetic, ambitious, really skilled coaches who took no prisoners. And they were able to attract a lot of athletes who thought the same way. And they taught us the same way, I think most of us who arrived had already had that seed planted within them,
Right.
and they just need to have it continually tapped into,
Right.
So it was a great time, man. It was great.
Yeah. So, just a side note, recently I've acquired the scorebooks from Coach Axtell's time here.
Oh, wow.
John finally dropped them off and
Wow.
brought them to me. So actually, recently I've been looking at the years from 73 to 77.
Yeah.
And it was like in one year, like 1976 maybe,
Yeah.
like Polanish got hurt, and you guys pretty much, it was Weaver and Siegel the rest of the way.
That was
I don't
it.
know how you did it with 2 pitchers, but you
Yeah,
guys
good for
ended up
you.
winning these, like, playing for the ECAC title, and I'm like,
Yep.
they just had 2 pitchers,
Yeah. We took care of business.
Yeah, so to your point, as far as, just had great players and guys who would do what it needed to take to win, right?
It's such a great point. You make such a great point. You just put a chill up my spine. It's amazing. Those someday when we get together, again, I have to look at those scorebooks and I'll really get a chill. But, you really captured a big part of my 4 years up there. That 76 year was really a gratifying year, to your point, because Mike Polanish, who as a sophomore was like the second coming of Jesus on the mound. He did no wrong. His ERA was, under 1. Shutouts almost every other start. He just owned it. Then he hurt his arm. And Mike was a great warrior, great athlete. And he toughed his way through it, but it was difficult. And as you said, Roger Weaver and Glenn Siegel, man, they were just tireless. They were, they were well-conditioned athletes. They were fearless. They had tenacity and perseverance and eye of the tiger. They were 2 crazy guys. And I love catching them, and we got it done. I think Tommy Beef slid in there a little bit too. Tommy Bean, and picked up the slack. And it was just that was a great year. And we showed everybody what we were made of when Mike went down. When Mike Polanish went down.
Right.
That's a great point.
Yeah. So along that line, what are some of the lessons that you kind of learned during your time that carried on to your professional life, and maybe talk a little bit about where you've spent your professional life, certainly in the franchise business with McDonald's, and then now you're doing some consulting. Yep. So how did Oneonta prepare you for that?
Well, to your point, Jeff, it my answer may sound a little like hokey, but it's true. So these buzzwords of perseverance, and persistence and work ethic, and playing well with others, and the ability to understand the moment. All those things really have application, from the playing field to life in any endeavor that you may end up with. And I was able to learn all of those things as an athlete, through coaches' teachings. And, in addition to that, as a student as well, the campus just had a great vibe. It was, I think the campus was very entrepreneurial, although it wasn't really a business school per se. I think at the end of the day, it just really was, it was able to just stimulate the best out of everyone. It had a great fun vibe. I think in the land of academia there, you had a lot of, wonderful instructors and teachers who really knew how to coach, in a different sense of the word. And then, of course, on the playing field, the words I used before all, came from the playing field. And I was able to just translate that, into how I viewed life. So, I've always felt as an athlete, you have to be tireless, and your work ethic has to be endless. And you really got to be persistent. You got to persevere. And you got to do the best you can to manage situations. Always remember tomorrow's another day, so be careful of the consequences of your actions today. Yeah. Tomorrow you got to wake up with those consequences. Yeah. So you got to be cool sometimes, and that's coming from a person who had a difficult time with that sometimes. But you got to just learn how to really find the way to get it done and be a problem solver. And all those things, come, I think, from the field of sport, and then you just apply it to whatever it is you do. So in my particular case, when I graduated school, I first got into the beer business, and I was a district manager with the Miller Brewing Company for 2 or 3 years. And then I went over to work for the importers of Beck's Beer. I was a regional vice president with them for 6 years. And then I owned a beer business for a 3-year period, wholesalership. And then I had always wanted to get into the franchise business. While I was working during my first, 10 to 12 years out of school, my real plan, even when I owned another business, was to get into the franchise business. And I always thought that the McDonald's brand, was the elite brand of the franchising world. And I felt that with the things I could hopefully bring to the table, in the arena of work ethic and maybe entrepreneurial spirit and the things we mentioned before, I can help, supplement what it is they bring to the table, and together we could join forces and make a great marriage. So I was fortunate. I sent in my application to McDonald's. They get, I don't know how many applications a week. I was told at the time, 20,000, 30,000. I was fortunate. I was screened, went through 4 interviews. It was almost like a colonoscopy, and it was, it was a diagnostic, but it's a good thing. It's not for everybody, but I enjoyed it. So after I met, all the specs in the 4 interviews, I was allowed to come to the training program, which sometimes takes 2 years. I was fortunate enough to get it done in like 9 months. And then I was offered my first restaurant in Brooklyn, New York in 1990. And I was fortunate enough to go on to grow to 9 restaurants. I had 9 stores in almost 19 years, all in Brooklyn. Wow. And I decided to sell them back in 2008. And then since then, I've been doing a lot of consulting, in the beverage business, because I spent almost 12 years in the beer business, and a lot of quick service restaurant consulting as well, And, I just, I enjoy the heck out of it. But, I can't stress enough the importance of what I learned, as an athlete, and on campus as well. These components, these personality components that are so vital, to life success. And again, it's, it's work ethic, it's being tireless in what you're pursuing, it's persevering, it's persistence, it's people skills, it's problem solving and adaptability. And, I always used to tell the people who worked with me in my McDonald's years, and I was constantly, it's coaching, I had 1,100 employees in 9 stores. And, it was a lot, so, it was almost like I had like 90 employees per store, but then, we go through people and so forth. And sometimes we bring other people on. So it was like 1,100 W-2s at the end of the year. But at one time we had about 700 employees. Wow. At one particular moment when the 9 stores were functioning, we would have, 800, 900 employees, whatever, it might have been 750, 900. And then later on you'd have more and you'd transition some in and out. And that's why, I come with the number 1,100. But you touch a lot of people and you coach a lot of people, and you try to explain to the young men and women that, life's a marathon and not a sprint, and there's a great opportunity for everybody and everyone to go out and kiss that brass ring and go get it, whatever it might be in your life, And ambition is the greatest drug of all, and the power of positive thinking. And that's what I continually told them. What I learned is, if you arrive at work before the person next to you, and while you're there, you work harder than the person next to you, and you leave after the person next to you, you're going to be in pretty good shape, And the other thing that I used to pride myself on was just do the things that no one else will do. I think when you're an athlete, you got to think that way in life. You should think that way, but be willing, it sounds a little, it might sound corny, but it's true. You have to be really willing to pay the extreme price if you want the extreme piece of gratification. And if you're willing to do the things tirelessly, no one else will, usually you'll get to where you want to be,
Yeah.
It helps create pathway.
Right.
But I learned that, I learned it at O State, and I applied it to as much of my subsequent life to this day as I could.
Now,
And it works quite a bit of the time, not always. And if it doesn't, you got to keep knocking on the door
yeah.
until you get it done.
That's just amazing. And I know that really the foundation of a lot of that with the baseball program, obviously, is Coach Don Axtell, who we lost, about 18 months ago. And just through, the service that they had for him and the players that came back and just the way people talk about him, can you maybe allude to some of that and, talk about him as a person and really, the lessons that he really passed on to be a man, not a baseball player, because I think that was his message. Like, we're going to be good, we're going to play ball, but afterwards you're going to have to be a provider, or, what I'm saying, you're going to have to actually live a life. Right. So could you maybe talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely, Jeff. That's such a great point. Coach Axtell was just the most unique person, I've ever encountered in my life. Now at the age of 64, I probably think he will be the most unique person and the most important person I've ever encountered. I was blessed and fortunate to be able to play baseball for him and to get to know him and to have a great relationship with him over time, until he had passed. I think powerful leaders such as Coach are sometimes complex people from a distance. So people who have never had the chance to get to know him, whether it would be, as a friend, a family member, or playing ball for him, people formulate opinions from a distance. And if they hear that someone is a great leader or a tough leader or regimented, the takeaway sometimes isn't as wonderful as it should be. So I'm here to tell you, we talked quite a bit about this, that he was as well-rounded a human being as God ever put on earth. So he was on the coaching side, Jeff, he was a phenomenal baseball coach. So he was very disciplined, and, he mandated that, and we were as well. He was very structured. He was very organized. He had tremendous baseball IQ. So, and I said this like once before, one of our past conversations, when someone has the aura of power and strength as a leader and a coach, and hustle and discipline and persistence, you start to find a way to lose the other assets they have. And the skill usually gets lost in those other buzzwords. But besides him being, a guy who hustled and a guy who was disciplined and a guy who showed up early and left late, he was really good at what he did. He really knew how to coach. His sustained excellence didn't happen by accident. I've always felt that anyone in life who has sustained excellence, instead of people sitting back and trying to find a reason, because sometimes people are envious and jealous of someone, and they'll find a reason why they didn't, part their hair correctly or get silly about something small. I've always tried to tell people, always watch someone's body of work in life, whatever that might be. And they were sustained in excellence. There's a reason for it, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a reason. And with Coach, his legacy as a coach and as a man didn't happen by accident. He paid the price. He paid attention to detail. He worked hard, stayed up late to prepare for the next day. I said he had a great baseball IQ. He really understood the fundamentals of baseball and how the game should be played. And he taught us that well. He understood the importance of great pitching. He was an advocate of that. He was an advocate of, as a hitter at the plate, the approach to the plate was to be aggressive, not to swing at bad pitches, to get the bat head out, extend the arms, and drive it right through the ball. Today, the game is taught so differently at the plate with launch angle and so forth. But he was really a great teacher at the plate, on the mound, and in the field. And our practices and our practice times were legendary because when we didn't play, we practiced. So, in September, we get up there in August, maybe late August, and we'd have maybe a 20-game fall season, maybe more, 22 games. But and the season would end October 12th-ish, like right around now, Columbus Day. And then 2 weeks later, November, we were practicing outside. And if the snow or the rain got too intense, then we came inside in the gym. And then the winter would come, and then we came back to school. And then in January, he was rigid and relentless in his approach to the importance of hitting the ground running in January. So he systematically had practice schedules and sessions set up for all position players in the gym, out in the parking lot if we could in January, under the physical science building with a batting cage. Another building had a simulated pitching mound, and a rubber. The infielders, would take ground balls in the gym. So all position players were serviced in January and February with a lot of practice time. And we had endless hitting. We had this great machine with the tie machine. And it was endless. It was great. My hands would be dripping with blood. And I was the happiest guy in the world. It was great. And, so he was really good at what he did as a baseball coach. And, the thing about coaches, I thought sometimes he was misunderstood because, again, when you're aggressive, you're a great leader and you have this sustained excellence, people from afar, have this perspective that you probably walk through life a certain way. But he wasn't brusque. He wasn't brazen. He never cursed. He was not a yeller. He was not a screamer. His silence was deafening. His look was, it would situate you, If he needed to send a message and he would just look over at you, it would situate you and make you take notice and understand what he said. He left so many things did not need to be said from him because you understood in the power of the moment what it was that had to be done.
Right.
And I'm describing him as a perfect person. None of us are perfect, but he was close to it, And he and I always thought one of the things that described Coach so well, was that as a teacher, so he taught phys ed classes, as you know, Jeff. His classes were some of the most popular classes, on campus. And it wasn't always because of the subject. He had a 6 a.m. golf class, right? And there aren't many people that I knew that wanted to get up 6 a.m. to go to golf class. The line formed to the left, and respectfully submitted, the female population on campus adored him because he had this sweet spirit, almost like a priest.
Yeah.
He was just a congenial. He was, he was a gentleman. He was a good guy with a great heart and soul. And he, as a great coach, he was a great teacher. I watched him. I took 2 of his classes, but I used to watch him sometimes in the other classes. And I knew people that, signed up for his class, and they would come to me and they would say, "Oh my God, Ricky's such a great guy." I said, "Of course he is, man."
Yeah.
But people wouldn't know because he's this big, tough, fearless leader and all those things that surround that kind of profile as a person. But his classes were popular. You couldn't get in if you didn't sign up on the first day, back then when we signed up for classes.
Yeah.
And he was just, he was adored. Now, like all, complex people and great people, there were some people that may not have, enjoyed his approach to the game of baseball or to life. And, we're all not for everyone, and he didn't try and win a popularity contest by any means.
Right.
And his style of coaching and leadership, certainly during the early 70s and mid 70s, could have, not been embraced by the masses,
Right.
And it could have been a deterrent to some people who wanted to come play baseball. But the beauty of it was that, no matter what his rules were, and they were rigid, and I think we discussed this before, in terms of appearance, no hair on the ears, no facial hair at all, and the rigidness of how you approach the game on and off the field. And during the 70s, it was, wild in the streets back then.
Yeah.
We were evolving, as a young society, and in appearance in every other which way. And that didn't deter him, from what he expected out of people.
Right.
So I think the power of his leadership and his ability to excel still gave him the ability to expect that out of individuals during a time in our society when it was difficult to get young men to want to cut their hair and shave their mustache, and behave.
Yeah.
So I think it speaks volumes about him and about the legacy and the brand that he built up there.
Well, and I think that's really what we see today, like you say, with, the people who still come back and who came back for his, his services and stuff like that. I mean, those are the stories that we get. And even today, his legacy is still part of our baseball program. And we appreciate all the support that we get from yourself and the alumni and the players and, how they talk about the program. And I really think that, we're in a good spot because of Don. So, I mean, I want to, thank you for sharing that with us today. And certainly I want to take time to say thank you again I know you're a busy guy. And I'm glad that you came on today to talk to us and just talk about Oneonta and how great of a place it was for you. So I want to thank you again.
Thank you, Jeff.
And now I
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you so much.
And I'm glad you took my call and said yes. And so
listen, when you call, I always tease you. When you ring the phone, I think most people pick up.
Yeah.
And when I see Jeff Hazen come up, I'll always pick up. You're a gentleman. You're a great guy, and you've become a great friend. And for what it's worth, I want to thank you and commend you for the fabulous job that you do on a daily basis. No one knows the work and the commitment that you put into what you do. Only yourself and the people around you know it. And not only are you excellent at what you do, but you care about what you do. Your passion is second to none. But what you've done in terms of embracing Coach's legacy and the ability to take his recognition to another level with yourself and Tracy, it's phenomenal. And it didn't have to be that way. You could have gone through the motions. A lot of programs allow people in charge to go through the motions, but you would have none of that.
Right.
And no with Tracy. And you're to be commended for that. You've done a fabulous job. And we all, I know, deeply appreciate it. The ex-athlete, the athletes that played for Coach, I know his family appreciates it. So you're going to heaven, brother.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Thank you very much. So we want to kind of get you out here on this. I'm going to throw 5 things at you, and I just want you to rattle off the first thing that comes to your mind. So What's your favorite meal? What's your favorite meal?
You know what? A slice of pizza is still what I enjoy most. I'm known for that. I know all the great pizza spots, my God, everywhere.
Yep, right there in the
New
city,
England,
right?
New York City. So slice of pizza,
okay.
Without a doubt.
What's your favorite movie all time?
My favorite movie, probably, and I'm a big movie fanatic, and this movie is an independent. Not many people may know of it, but some may. It was one of Robert De Niro's earliest movies, Mean Streets, in 1973.
Okay.
My favorite movie of all time.
Your favorite genre of music?
I love rock. I love I love 60s and 70s stuff, without a doubt. I was a big Beatles guy, but I loved the early 60s before the Beatles arrived. I love the Beatles, the British Invasion,
Yeah.
and I love Springsteen, and Allman Brothers, and I love stuff today. I have a wide range of stuff that I'll get into, and my kids will look at me like I'm crazy. They won't believe it, but probably 60s and 70s, pre-Beatles a little bit, and then Beatles and post-Beatles right into the late 70s.
All right. And what's your favorite athlete all time?
Has to be Thurman Munson.
Thurman Munson, the catcher, the captain.
Yes.
Good for you.
Yes.
And the place you would most like to visit?
Let's see. Besides heaven, at some point. Let's see. Probably, I would like to get back to Hawaii.
Okay.
Been there a few times, but to me, Maui is nirvana.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, Rick, I want to thank you again for coming on the show and hope we get to see you soon.
Thank you so much, Jeff. It was a pleasure. Please feel free to call anytime. And you're a gentleman and a scholar. You do a fabulous job. It was my pleasure to be here today. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you. And we'd like to thank Rick once again for being on the show. And we'd like to thank you for joining us again. And we hope that you'll come back and see us soon on the Ozone.